Greetings, curious chrononauts. Sir Chuckleton here, ready to whisk you to an utterly bizarre chapter in human history. A tale so peculiar, it sounds like something from a particularly unhinged Monty Python sketch. We're venturing to the vast, sun-baked plains of Western Australia circa 1932. What kind of epic conflict could unfold here? Not a gold rush, not a colonial skirmish. Oh no, my dear friends, something far stranger. Picture this, a nation, Australia, fresh from the Great Depression's grim embrace, faces an existential threat. Not from a foreign power, not economic collapse, but from its own birds. Yes, you heard me, large, flightless, feathery creatures with an uncanny knack for strategic evasion. We're talking about the emus. These feathered fiends, numbering in the tens of thousands, descended upon the wheat crops of ex-servicemen farmers who had been encouraged to settle the land. Their livelihood was being systematically decimated. What's a government to do when its agricultural backbone is under avian assault? Declare war, naturally.
And thus began one of history's most spectacularly ill-conceived military campaigns, the Great Emu War. Declare war, naturally, and thus began one of history's most spectacularly ill-conceived military campaigns, the Great Emu War. A conflict where the enemy didn't carry rifles, but rather an air of bewildered indifference and an astonishing ability to outmaneuver seasoned soldiers. Join me as we unravel the strategic blunders, the feathered triumphs, and the sheer glorious absurdity of this ornithological odyssey.
Good day, history hounds, and welcome back to Sir Chuckleton's Curious Histories. Today, we're journeying down under to a tale that proves even in the vast arid expanse of the Australian Outback, too much of a good thing can lead to, well, quite the feathered fiasco. Our story begins after the Great War. Thousands of brave Australian veterans returning from distant battlefields were offered a unique opportunity: vast tracts of land in Western Australia. The dream? To transform the harsh bush into productive wheat farms. A noble ambition, certainly, fueled by a post-war agricultural boom and the promise of a brighter future. But nature, my dear friends, rarely reads the human agenda. As these new farms sprang up, clearing native vegetation and planting acres upon acres of delectable wheat, an unexpected guest arrived: the emu. Or more accurately, multitudes of emus. These magnificent, flightless birds whose natural habitats were being encroached upon found an all-you-can-eat buffet laid out before them. Their population, once balanced by natural predators and food scarcity, exploded. We're talking thousands, tens of thousands. A feathered tsunami, if you will, marching across the landscape, devouring crops with astonishing efficiency. Farmers, many of whom were still recovering from the traumas of war, watched their livelihoods literally vanish into the gullets of these giant birds. This wasn't just a nuisance, it was an ecological and economic crisis brewing. The wheat, meant to feed a nation and provide income, was becoming bird feed. The government, initially dismissive, soon realized the gravity of the situation. What do you do when an entire species decides your agriculture is its personal pantry? The stage was set, dear viewers, for one of history's most bizarre and, frankly, rather one-sided conflicts, the Great Emu War of 1932. But that, as they say, is a story for another time, or perhaps the next scene.
Ah, the annals of military history, full of grand strategies, valiant heroes, and, well, sometimes a bit of the utterly absurd. Join me, Sir Chuckleton, as we journey to the land down under, where an unlikely foe once declared war on an entire nation. Not a foreign power, mind you, but a feathered menace, the emu. Picture this. It's 1932, Western Australia. Farmers, many of them ex-soldiers, are struggling. The Great Depression bites hard. And then, to add insult to injury, thousands upon thousands of emus descend upon their wheat crops. A truly feathery, chaotic invasion. The farmers, desperate, appeal to the government. Now, what's a government to do when faced with an avian uprising? Deploy the military, of course. But not just any military, a special contingent armed with machine guns. Yes, you heard that right. In what can only be described as a uniquely Australian solution, the Minister of Defense himself, Sir George Pearce, dispatched soldiers to tackle the emu menace. It was a bizarre, high-stakes wildlife management operation featuring Vickers machine guns, trucks, and naturally, a great many very confused, very fast birds. The stage was set for one of history's most delightfully preposterous conflicts. Truly a call to arms and machine guns.
Ah, the Great Emu War of 1932. A name that promises epic clashes, but delivers mostly bewildered birds and even more bewildered men. Our tale begins with the rather optimistic, perhaps naive plan. Major G.P.W. Meredith's forces arrived with Lewis automatic machine guns. Impressive firepower, certainly. But against an enemy that measured its battlefield in vast acres and moved with the unpredictable grace of a rogue dust devil, this was less a military campaign and more a frustrating game of whack-a-mole across the sun-baked plains. The initial strategy was simple, almost laughably so. Herd the emus. Imagine oversized, flightless birds sprinting at 50 kilometers per hour being chased by trucks and soldiers. The idea was to corral them into tight formations, making them easy targets. This, my friends, proved an exercise in futility. The emus were no feathered automatons. They possessed a surprising tactical awareness, or perhaps just an innate ability to scatter at the first sign of trouble. They'd break formation like uncooperative schools of fish, darting off in every direction, leaving soldiers quite literally spinning their wheels. It was less a war and more a chaotic, feathered ballet of avoidance, truly a masterpiece of avian evasion. Ah, the Emu War, a peculiar clash. Human strategy versus feathery, unpredictable chaos. Australian soldiers, armed with machine guns, expected a simple operation. Instead, they faced an unforeseen biological challenge. The emus, my friends, were unpredictability personified. Imagine targeting birds that constantly shift, scatter, then regroup with unnerving precision. Their utter lack of pattern, no formations, no predictable retreats, turned every engagement into a bewildering ballet of feathers and bullets. Then, their incredible flocking behavior. Hundreds, even thousands, moved as one undulating wave. This pulsating mass created a live-in shield, absorbing shots and overwhelming soldiers' sightlines. Bullets scattered them, only for the flock to coalesce again, seemingly invulnerable. A truly impenetrable force. And their uncanny ability to outmaneuver, legendary. These clumsy birds sprinted up to 50 kilometers per hour. They masterfully used the vast open plains, vanishing into scrubland. Slow military trucks stood no chance. Herding attempts failed spectacularly. Emus simply broke ranks, darting unexpectedly, leaving soldiers utterly frustrated and dusty. The profound lesson? Never underestimate nature's adaptability when paired with pure chaos. The Emu War wasn't just a military blunder, it was a testament to Australia's formidable fowl. A most curious history indeed. Now, you might think, with machine guns blazing, human victory was inevitable. Wrong. Oh, so gloriously wrong. Despite initial victory reports, a term often used with hopeful delusion, the Emu War was far from over. its most farcical act had barely begun. The military, facing a relentless, intelligent, baffling foe, slowly grasped the sheer absurdity. Trained soldiers, modern weaponry, engaged in a full tactical retreat from birds. Ammunition costs staggering, morale plummeting. This wasn't a winnable war. You can't claim victory when your enemy simply disperses, only to regroup and mock you with clucking defiance. What followed wasn't a formal surrender nor grand peace. Instead, a slow, embarrassed withdrawal. Ammunition low, farmers tired of expensive, ineffective theaters, the government, perhaps realizing a war against flightless birds wasn't a strong political platform, quietly pulled back. Nature, it seemed, declared its own unofficial armistice. The emus, feathered tacticians, were left to roam, unmolested. They hadn't signed treaties, hadn't raised flags of surrender. They simply outlasted, outmaneuvered, and, dare I say, outwitted their human adversaries. In a curious military chapter, the emus emerged definitively victorious, a triumph of avian persistence over human pride and general bewilderment. The Emu War, a glorious chapter in military history, if by glorious you mean hilariously misguided. In 1932, the good people of Western Australia, faced with an ecological conundrum, 20,000 emus, feathered fiends, descending upon their wheat crops, decided a military solution was in order. Enter Major G.P.W. Meredith, armed with machine guns. The plan? Simple. Outmaneuver the birds. The reality? A feathered, flapping, strategic nightmare. These aren't your average barnyard fowl, folks. Emus, it turns out, are rather adept at guerrilla warfare. They dispersed, they regrouped, they dodged bullets with an almost preternatural grace. The soldiers, meanwhile, found themselves engaged in a futile ballet of bullets and feathers, expending vast amounts of ammunition for minimal results. It was a classic case of human hubris meeting nature's chaotic genius. The military, baffled and outmaneuvered by birds, eventually retreated. What lessons can we glean? Perhaps that brute force isn't always the answer. That sometimes the enemy you face isn't thinking like you, but simply is. It highlights the intricate dance of ecological balance and the unforeseen consequences of disrupting it. And for a moment, one might even wonder, were those emus smarter than we gave them credit for? A feathered Sun Tzu, perhaps, teaching us a lesson in adaptive strategy. A curious history indeed.